Love it. Love it every time.
Every time.
Wow.
Hello.
Wow.
Welcome to the Women Wise podcast. Janine, how are you doing?
I am really doing great, Sara. How are you doing?
Fantastic. And as always, we've got another amazing guest. And today, who do we have, Janine?
Oh, before we head into who we have with us today, I just want to remind everybody about our mission. And our mission is really to create a space for women to have a voice, to be heard, share their stories, and also their journeys to truly inspire others. And this is where we have our amazing guest today, Yvonne Postma, where she's an amazing teacher within Dubai, and she's an author. So a lot of things going to be shared today. Yvonne, a warm welcome to Women Wise podcast.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
Lovely to have you.
I don't know what's going on with my technical side of things today. It's all going haywire. StreamYard have changed things, and I hate it when people change things because it's like, no, this was working perfectly fine before. So here we are. Yvonne, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very excited to be here and to meet you, and and share some stuff about what I do.
Amazing.
Awesome. Love that.
Yeah, why don't we just dive straight in? So Yvonne, tell us and our listeners what is it you actually do and a little bit about your journey to where you are today.
All right, so I'm a teacher. I teach music at one of the schools in Dubai, but ever since I was young, I've been writing. I was a little girl when I think I bored my English teacher to death with everything I wrote, but every week, he was just, at least he pretended to be really excited to look at what I showed him, and it could be poems and it was short stories, and it was always so lovely. And he really showed me that no matter what age you are, you can write. And of course, none of that was ever published, but I was just really excited that there was someone who was encouraging me. Then when I came to Dubai, I came here in 2009, I'll have you know. Excuse me. Couple of years later, I was actually teaching a year 6 class at another school. And one of the things I really wanted to do is share my love of writing and reading and English with my students. And I found some literature about creating what is called an author's corner in your class. And I was so excited. So I bought this book, and in it said, if you want to really teach your children, your students, how to do this, you need to model it. And I thought, oh, I can do that. So that summer, I actually went on holiday with a darling friend of mine, Veronica, and we went to Italy for a month. And I thought, oh, you know what I'll do? As I'm on holiday, I'll buy a little notebook and a pencil, because I hadn't brought that, and I'll just write a short story. Then I've done that, and then when I come home to Dubai in September, I can use that short story with the students. But then I enjoyed myself, and this short story grew, and it became a medium story, and it became a longer story, and became an even longer story. And as I said, darling Veronica, she read it for me, and she was just like, you need to do something with this. That turned into novella that did get published. But as you do, I am 14 years on, I think, from publication from that. And now when you look back, you kind of think, oh boy, I wrote that. I would do so many things so different now. So now in October of 2024, I actually had my new novel published, Hidden Among the Branches by me. And how that started, it was actually a friend of mine all the way in Canada contacted me and said, have you ever heard of something called NaNoWriMo? And that stands for National Novel Writing Month. And it's every November, and it's a challenge. It's free to partake, but the challenge is to write 50,000 words in the entire month in 30 days. Now, at the moment, I'm actually a performing arts teacher. I teach music. So you can just about imagine that November, December in my school year for me are the craziest, the busiest, the most insane, getting ready for all our concerts. And I absolutely love my job. I love doing everything with my students. But I was like, I can do that challenge. I mean, how hard can it be?
50,000 words, that's nothing.
50,000 words.
And I believe it comes down to an average of something like 1,500, give or take, a day. And when you say that really quickly, you're like, well, easy? It wasn't easy, but it was great. I had a story in my head, and I thought, well, my friend can do it, so can I. So we both took part in NaNoWriMo, and sure enough, by November 30th, I had written 50,000 words.
Wow. That's
Thank
amazing.
you. So I got the t-shirt. And so then another month later, by the end of December, I had actually finished the first draft. And that's when the real work starts. The first draft is actually the easy part. But then editing. So the editing took 9 months. So writing the first draft took 2 months, and then the editing took 9 months. With a professional editing company. So, and then a month after that, it hit the shelves on Amazon, and very exciting. Any day now, it will hit the shelves of Kinokuniya in Dubai Mall.
Oh my goodness, amazing! So, are you going to be doing a book signing there? Is there?
Well, so I don't know yet. So the way it works, they buy a very small amount of books just to see how it goes. And everyone, as soon as it goes out, you need to run to Dubai Mall. You need to go to Kinokuniya.
Get your copy.
Yeah, of course, I'm going to go as well. In fact, my best friend is coming over next week, and I'm hoping that it arrives on the shelves when she's here, so we can go together. And of course, I'm going to have to stand there next to the shelf with my book, which I really want to do. And then I hope I can speak to someone and get a signing, or at least do something, even a workshop with teenagers, or I'd love to do that.
So who's the audience for this book? It's teenagers?
So it's teenagers. Now, because I've been at my school for quite a number of years now, and I've obviously created a bond with all my students. So even my younger students, my year 4 students who are 8 going on 9, I think, even they were like, oh, we don't care if it's 13 plus, we just really want your book. So the really strong readers who are younger, they can also read it. I've had a couple of students say, oh, miss, I really loved your book, but it was difficult. That was the younger years. But the secondary students, I've gotten feedback that they've just really, really enjoyed it. That, they think it's exciting. They can't believe the things that are happening. And today it was actually really nice. A mum stopped me on my way to the car. And she's like, oh, I just need you to know that my daughter, she read it in 2 days and she couldn't stop. So where's the next book? Can you get on it? Please get on it.
We might save that question. We might save that question till the end in terms of what's next.
It's lovely to get feedback like that from people.
Oh, yeah, definitely, especially after the journey, 50,000 words in 30 days, and then 9 months later of editing, etc. So hidden amongst the branches delves into complex family relationships as well as personal growth. So how did you get to, what inspired you to actually get to that specific story?
I think when I come up with my stories, because they're always realistic fiction, I like touching on stories where I know that a lot of children will actually be part of maybe a family like that, but not know how to talk about it. I like kind of cutting edge topics where children might go, oh, how can you write about that? But they need to know that it does really exist in life. Now, when I was a teenager, I still read a lot, but as a teenager, I also read a lot. And I remember, I'm actually Dutch. So I read a lot of Dutch books as well for school. And one of the books was about a 14-year-old girl who was actually addicted. And that book hit me so hard. Now, I have never, in those years, I grew up in Saudi, so I'm Dutch, but I grew up in Saudi. So I grew up in a bubble. I had no idea that children had any, could even access any of this. So when I then moved back to the Netherlands to go to boarding school, like a whole world opened up for me. But this book, and I think then it was like, these stories need to be told. So even though I've completely made it up, it could be completely true. So she has a mother who is rather awful, but then she also meets the other protagonist who also doesn't treat her very well. And she needs to find a way, Eloise is the main character, she needs to find a way to deal with this.
Mm.
And I think there's a lot of children in our world who also have to deal with issues at home or in friendship groups or at schools where they don't really know how to deal with it. So I'm hoping that, you know, if you've got something like this, that they might get inspired to talk to someone or at least reach out to someone.
Mm. That's lovely.
So it sounds like you've got a very interesting background then. So what's been your sort of life journey to hear,
Oh,
you know,
boy.
from when you were younger?
Okay, let's see if I can do a very short synopsis of this. So I was born in 1979. You can do your math. And in 1982, I moved to Saudi Arabia with my family because for my dad's job. In between, so I was there for quite a long time. In between, we went back to the Netherlands for a couple of years, but then we moved back to Riyadh again. And then in 1992, I went to boarding school in the Netherlands, where I stayed until 1997, where I did my, I was an IB graduate. Then I went to Teachers College. I taught in the Netherlands for 8 years. Yeah, 8 years. And then I think it must have been 2008 where I thought, I really like what I'm doing. But growing up in an international setting, I missed that. I missed speaking English. I missed being around international students. I always had lots of friends, but I was always I wasn't the weird one per se, but I was the one who had like a really weird life growing up. I spoke 2 languages. I'd seen the world. I had grown up well-to-do with my family. And so I would sometimes in a conversation say, oh, you know, when I lived in Saudi, and you'd see people go, oh, here we go again. And I was like, oh, that's not how I meant it. It's just my life. So I wanted to go back into the international setting. So I think when I arrived here in September of 2009 and I walked into an international school, I think I had a smile this big on my face because I understood these children and these children understood me. I was no longer weird for having lived abroad. So that's 16 years now, and I still love where I am.
Amazing.
Yeah, traveled.
So are you quite an unusual sort of teacher in that respect then, in the fact that you've lived, you know, particularly in the Middle East and then come back here to work? Or is there a sort of a cohort of teachers who've had that experience?
No. So my very first school was actually here in Dubai, was actually an international baccalaureate school. And I think in schools like that, you will find many more expat children who have now become teachers. And I think because that's the IB philosophy as well. I'm currently in a different curriculum where most teachers are from one part of the world. So I suppose maybe I am different, but I've never felt that way here.
Because you fit in with the students, like
yeah,
exactly. You've got that connection. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I remember a couple of years ago there was a student. It was spring break, and I asked my class then. I said, "Oh, is anyone traveling?" And one of the girls was like, "Oh, yeah, we're going to Egypt."
Yeah.
And
I'm so sorry.
But you know what? But I understood it because every holiday they would go somewhere, and I said, "Oh, why don't you want to go to Egypt?" And her answer was, I just want to stay where I live and play with my friends. Yeah. And she didn't want to travel. Yeah. And then if I had been back in the Netherlands and one of the kids had said that, they would have looked at you going, you are such a spoiled brat. She wasn't being a spoiled brat. She just wanted to play.
Yeah. And have a rest. Because it's pretty full on here. I don't think a lot of people realize, you know, it's early start, you know, there's the after school activities, the school days full on.
Exactly. You know? They're long days. She just wanted to invite her friends and sleepovers and do whatever they do when they're 10 years old. And yeah, and I could understand. I thought to myself, oh, other people might have reacted to this going, oh my goodness, that's so spoiled. And not that I never wanted to travel. I love traveling, but I got it. And I think they get me. You know, I'm not weird because I speak 2 languages. In fact, they think I'm actually, you know, poor you only speak 2 languages. You know, I speak 4 or 5, even 6. So, but yeah, I love it. I wouldn't want to teach, not necessarily not in another country, but I wouldn't not want to be in an international school.
Makes sense.
Amazing.
It makes sense. You've mentioned now earlier about how your book is, can be so relatable. So your character Eloise, she's got such a rich and layered character, and I think a lot of us can really like see us in her character. Obviously, this is a way to tell you by the book. But how did you develop her, and what's the message you want people to actually get from Eloise?
I wanted Eloise to have a fighting spirit, but she still needed to look for it. So without giving away too much, Eloise comes from a very, very wealthy family. They live in a mansion. Dad's a lawyer. He's got his own practice. But Eloise doesn't have any friends. Now, all she wants is to have a friend, but her mother has taught her from a very young age, friends will only ruin your life. You don't need friends. You just need us. You need to go to school. You need to do very well. You need to be successful, but friends will not help you on the way to success. Now, then as an author, you need to think, what would it do to someone if you have never had a friend? It would make you a little bit socially awkward. So I had to make her that as well. I needed to show that she really, really wanted to connect with students or peers. But every time she tried that, it backfired. They would say something nasty, or they would laugh at her, or she would say something. She's also in the book, she is brutally honest. But when you are at a boarding school with 14, 15, 16-year-olds, and you are telling someone who is lying on the couch with her legs hung over the backrest, and you say to someone, "Oh, you're not supposed to sit like that." Yeah, that's not a good idea.
Go well.
But she's like, I'm only telling you what the rules are. And she just doesn't understand why people get cross with her for saying the way it is.
So did you draw on your own experiences from boarding school?
No. No, I've been very lucky. I was not bullied at boarding school. I had a group of friends. It's actually interesting. I was different at boarding school, but I got along with everyone. So not to put my boarding school down, but in the Netherlands, boarding school isn't a thing. So there's only one boarding school. And it was an interesting group of people that lived together. And some were more interested in experimenting with things. And I had zero interest in any of this. So I would let them use my room to sneak out of the window, because at one point my room was above the shed so they could jump on. But I wouldn't go on night walk. I also wouldn't tell on them, but I just didn't want to go. I also had no interest in experimenting with anything. But no one ever called me out on that. They didn't mind. I got on with absolutely everyone. They let me be me. I let them be them, and it was fine.
I'm laughing because I went to boarding school as well, but I was probably like your friends.
Yeah, in those 5 years, it probably, it's interesting now that I write these stories. I'm like, why didn't you ever do that? Why didn't you just go on night walk? But I was petrified of being caught. Thinking back now, it wasn't even that strict. I don't even know how much trouble we would have been in. I mean, I did get grounded once for 3 months.
Oh, ouch. Okay.
Yeah, but I won't go into that. But even my parents thought that was a bit harsh. But yeah, I just wasn't that girl. So I think I watched from the sidelines. I had lots of friends. I got on with absolutely everybody, and they just let me be me, which was probably quite unique, because just didn't do what they did.
Yes, and in real world, it's not always like that, like what you experience, but people are supporting for who you are. And I think that's what makes this character Eloise so, like, highlighting your book in a very big way for people to really relate to who and what she is. So just a quick question with regards to the audience. You've got quite a, because we talked about audience before, and it's quite a wide size of audience. What is the most rewarding feedback that you've received since you've released this book?
Oh, wow. So a girl at my school came a couple of weeks ago. She read the book apparently in one sitting, and she came to me and she goes, "Miss, because of you, I'm now also going to write a story."
Oh.
And I think also because I'm a teacher at heart, I've been a teacher for 25 years. That was just so awesome. I love it when they come to me, oh, Miss, it's the best book I've ever read. But don't forget that the students at my school, they know me. They also want to be really kind and they want me to love them all. And I do love them all. But she said, I am going to write a story. Will you help me? And I went, absolutely, I'll help you. You know,
Oh, that's so
when you've
beautiful.
written something, let me read it and I'll help you. I haven't received anything yet. I'm waiting for that. But yeah, and what you said with a wide audience. So yes, it's geared for 13 plus, but I've had lots and lots of adults read it. My dad is one of them, and he said to me, it doesn't feel like a young adult fiction novel, even though it is. So I think age-wise, if we think to, for example, the Harry Potter series, J.K. Rowling wrote that for a children's audience. But what I love is that children love it, but adults love it at the same time because they look at it very differently. And I'm just hoping, yeah, that from say 10 plus, even though it's been marked as 13 plus, but I think hopefully from 10 and up, people will enjoy it.
I love that that child came to you because, sorry, Sara, because the book is also now creating their minds to be creative as well. So yeah, I can imagine that was a very, very heartwarming, emotional.
And meeting the author of the book, you know, or knowing the author of the book is always, you know, it makes it so real for them that, oh, this is something that, you know, I can do. It's not this sort of far away, you know, sort of dream that's very, very remote. Yeah. So in terms of actually writing, go on.
I was going to say, when I started writing, I told the children what I was doing, and you could see a couple of kids go, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Good for you. But then when it came out and I sat in school and I was like, here it is, they actually went, oh my goodness, you actually did it. And then they were like, that is just so cool. And then they wanted to know everything about it. So, you know, even if I've just inspired one or two children, that would be, I'd love that.
And in terms of the challenge of writing a book, what do you think was the biggest hurdle that you had to overcome?
Oh, editing. No doubt about it. At some point, so the story's in your head, you know exactly what it needs to say, and you actually miss things. Because in my head, I know what's happening. I know what things look like. So you're actually advised when you finish the first draft, put it away for about 6 weeks and then read it again, kind of with new eyes, because then the story has disappeared a little bit. So then you edit and you edit and you edit, and then you need to send it to your editor for the first time. I can tell you that is scarier than sending an essay to your English teacher growing up. Because now this complete stranger that you have found, who is now going to be your editor, is going to tell you in no uncertain terms what they think. And as teachers, we still try to be quite nice. You know, oh, this was lovely. However, you know, you did that really well, but let's look at this. So I just thought that the first feedback I was going to get, I would be blasted to pieces. That wasn't the case at all. I have a lovely, lovely editor. She's wonderful. She did actually do what we do as teachers. This is really good. I love this. You need to fix this. So when I got into the flow of that, I started enjoying it. But I was telling students now, or someone who asked me yesterday, you know, I want to write, what's your advice? And I said to her, just sit down and write from A to Z. Don't go back, don't edit. You can add things if you're thinking, oh, I've just done this, but I need to go back because in order for this to happen, first this needs to happen. That's fine. But just write and write and write and write. Because if you keep going back to edit, you'll actually never move forward. And that was the best advice. Yeah, that was because I did exactly what I just said not to do. I wrote a chapter and then I went back to edit it. A week later, I was still in the same chapter. I'm like, I'm not getting anywhere. And someone said to me, no, just keep writing. So the first couple of days, I found that quite scary because I thought I need to go back. I need to edit. I need to fix it. But it was so, it was such a release when I could just write and just get the story out. And then I went back to fix it. So my own edits, there was about 6 months of it before I sent it to the editor. I must have
long
15
period.
rounds of editing, and by the end I was very sick of my own book. Can't read this
And
anymore.
did you use the story as a way of, you were saying, like, you weren't one of the girls who would have snuck out or experimented or everything. Did you use the book as a way of a kind of an outlet for that aspect of maybe yourself that you didn't have as a teenager?
No, because she ends up also not doing anything because she's too scared. She's not.
I haven't read the book, so I will be, but
she's not me. I've also not based any of the characters from her boarding school to my friends from boarding school. I didn't want anyone to read it and go, well, that's obviously me. I would have hated that. I have completely made up this story. There is no reference to any of my life experiences, except through stories that I may have known from students and put them together. So I might have known someone who was very insecure, or I might have known someone with a rather unpleasant mother, or so that is what put it together, but it's not my experiences. I have none of these experiences in the book, thankfully.
Well, that's good to have that out there, so no one can come back and say, hang on a minute, that why did you make me like that?
No, exactly. So I didn't want to do that at all. I've decided I will never write a book about my boarding school. My view is my view. I would hate to put someone in a light they don't want to be put in. That is just not who I am. I don't want to do that at all.
Now, balancing writing with daily life, being a teacher, a daughter, an aunt, a friend, etc., it's not a small task. So how do you maintain your creativity and your discipline as an author?
Yeah, that's really hard. So when this book was on the go, and when I knew I had to do this 50,000 words, I was quite disciplined. And if I had to skip a day, which happens, life happens, then on the weekends, I would make sure that I could do maybe 4,000 or 5,000 words. When the flow isn't there, it's so very difficult. Like at the moment, I'm working on a new project, and I said to someone today, I said, I have a very serious case of word vomit. It is just coming out, and I can hardly keep up with my own thoughts, and I'm just typing away and typing away. And I know that at some point that'll stop, and then I need to go back and think. Then I need to plot, and I don't necessarily plan, but I do think of the world where we're in. I'm something that I'm an author. It's called a pantser. So rather than planning every chapter, I let my characters lead me. Where are we going? What are we doing now? Oh, we're going into the forest. Oh, okay. Oh, let's go to the forest. And initially I thought that sounds so weird because I'm the author. I get to decide. But I think life does kind of guide you. And so suddenly, the Raven is the other girl. We're like, okay, we're going to the forest. I'm like, okay, cool. What's happening in the forest?
You're like, oh, what's going to happen?
Yeah, exactly that. I tried to explain this. I know I tried to explain this to my father, and he was like, right, let's discuss this in more detail in the summer because I'm not quite sure I understand what you mean. And I understand that when you say that, it can sound really strange, but I love being surprised by my characters. Or suddenly,
I think J.K. Rowling basically said the same thing when she was talking about the Harry Potter series, was that the story arrived. It wasn't that she had to force it. It was like she got it, and then the characters were turning up, as she was writing. And I think that's, to me, that's like you're just completely connected to source. You're totally in that creative flow. So there's something really magical happening when you're in that creative frame of mind.
Yeah, and it's just so fun when you're in the flow. And as I said, that will stop. The flow at some point will stop. Then you might go back a little bit and just read through and just say, okay, can I get some ideas from what I'm reading now? And then what I also find at some point, I just need to keep typing. And what I would do, I would type and type and type until a character started doing something. And what I would then do, I would kind of highlight what I just typed, maybe in like red, knowing I need to come back to this. It's almost like a little a bridge between what I'd done and where I was now. And I needed to fix that, but I needed that bridge to be able to continue. So, and then in my editing, I would come back to that. And I'd very often laugh and go, yeah, that's a good thing you highlighted that, because that's really, really awful. But, you know, it's good to laugh at your own writing sometimes and think, oh, my word, what have I just written?
No, it's almost like you're keeping yourself accountable by highlighting it in red.
Totally. Yeah. Or, you know, when you're writing something, or sometimes, you know how some programs you can do like a little post-it next to it. And I would just say, fix, exclamation mark. But yeah, you need to keep yourself accountable. You need to, you know, you need to look at what you're doing and does it make sense and is it good and are my readers going to understand this? Yeah. So that's how I keep going. I've not done anything. Yeah.
No, go on.
I was going to say, I've not written anything for a couple of months, but since a couple of days, as I said, serious case of word vomit. So for my new project, I'm just in the flow completely.
Okay, now I have 3 questions then. So one question is, when you're in the editing process and an external person who, you know, obviously they're reading it for the first time and then they're giving you feedback, how do you cope then with that feedback?
So the first time I opened it, I'll be honest, that was really scary. Because again, you know, when you're at school, you're so used to your English teacher taking a red pen and going, right, here we go. And you get it back and you're 16 or 17, you're like, yeah, whatever, you know. But now it was almost like, am I going to take this as a personal affront? You know, like, how dare you? But that wasn't how it was at all. So editors are so skilled in keeping your voice. So they read through what you've done a couple of times to just say, okay, so what's this author's style? And they never, ever, ever want to change your style or tell you, no, you have to change this or you need to use this tone of voice. So there's all sorts of editing. There's line editing, there's developmental editing, I could go on and on and on. And you need to say very clearly what you want. So I obviously wanted the line editing, which is all about grammar and punctuation and making sure it makes sense. But I also wanted the developmental edit saying, you know, does it make sense? A developmental edit is something as simple as, if I have given her a green sweater in chapter 1, but in chapter 5, it's suddenly turned into a blue sweater. The editor needs to pick up on that and tell me, yeah, you need to fix that.
So it's a bit like continuity then in kind of, you know, movies and TV series.
Yeah. Or sometimes it would be like, okay, have a read through this paragraph. I'm not entirely sure what you mean. Can you clarify? Or, but also grammar wise. So I've learned so much. I thought I was quite impressed with myself. You know, I sent this to her and I thought she's going to think it's brilliant. There's nothing to edit. And then I got it back, and the first time you open it, you're like, oh my word.
Must be daunting, yeah.
You know, I like to think, because I got good grades in English, you know, growing up. But just grammar things that just snuck in over the years and that all needed to be fixed. And you're like, okay, I need to go and fix all of this.
Wow.
Words, for example, the word that. You can, 99% of the time, you can actually remove that word from a sentence. So I had to go through. So the end result was 80,000 words. I had to go through 80,000 words and remove most of the that's. And you're like,
oh, interesting.
It's like a superfluous. It's sort of a superfluous word then in terms of the meaning of the sentence, and it maybe makes it a little bit more cumbersome.
Yeah, if you take it out and you read the sentence, you're like, oh, yeah, it's still a perfect sentence, and it's less to read.
It's just habit of adding the word.
Yeah, I have always written Mr., Mrs., and Miss with a full stop after it. No, not in books. So really? Do you know how many times you write Mr., Mrs., or Miss in a book? So all of those had to go. And of course, you can do that with replace. I mean, I'm not saying that I did that one by one, but those are the things they look at. So the first time was daunting, and I thought, am I going to take it personally? But I didn't. And my editor actually edits in batches. So I would send her between 12.5 and 15,000 words in one go. So we had about 6 or 7 batches. And I started to really look forward to receiving her feedback again.
Oh, amazing.
So yeah, so that was really nice. The first time was scary. And then after that, it was just great.
Yeah, but also with the feedback, you're now learning and you're growing, and it means that you can add what you learn with the next book and the next project. So
so I'm trying now. When I write now, I'm like, not that, not that. Also doesn't have
Know that.
Yeah, know that.
Know that.
And also not writing, giving time. So not saying now she went. I mean, that's a terrible example, but the words now or well, yeah, anything that relates to now, take all of that out as well, so that it stays quite timeless. You don't have to say 3 days later. No need for that.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And how did you know when you were done? Like in terms of the edits and everything else, like at what point did you go, okay, this is it? Like how is that decision made?
At some point, you need to stop. You have done a million edits. You've got it back from the editor. You've read it through again. You've had proofreaders. I actually had one of my students proofread it for me. And then I had 4 more. So she did the first edits, not an edit, first feedback. Then I had 4 more students who proofread it for me and gave me feedback, which was fantastic. And then at some point you need to say, okay, I'm done, because you could edit for another 10 years. I'm sure.
I'm wondering, like, at what point do you just like there must be something that you just think, okay, it's never going to be 100% perfect because nothing is. But there must be a point where you think, this is going to be.
Yeah, so we've done the 6 or 7 parts of editing. Then I got it back. I changed all the edits, and then it went to the editing team one last time as a full manuscript. And then in this editing company, it then was given to 2 editors to do a last check. Then I got my final edits back, and once I'd finished that, I had to go. Done. And then, it goes into formatting.
Amazing. And was there ever any temptation to use AI like ChatGPT or things like that to?
No, I even got there's a line on the copyright page to say no part of this book was used, AI was used for.
Amazing, because there's probably a big temptation.
Yeah, I am not opposed to AI, for example, for brainstorming, or like I am trying my hand at a fantasy series now, and sometimes I need to come up with names. I have no issue using AI for that, but I will not ever ask AI, write, this is what I want, write this chapter for me. Oh my goodness, I couldn't look myself, in the eye. That's just not me. I don't mind it. There's AI programs to check grammar and spelling. I have no issues with that.
Yes.
But it has to be from your hand.
Yeah. Especially this kind of genre, it needs to be authentic as well.
Yeah. We live in a very modern world. Yeah.
My question to you would be, aspiring writers, especially women, looking to share their voice, and what advice would you give them if they are stuck, or whatever it is that they feel? What advice would you give them?
So they've already started writing, but they're stuck?
Let's go with that.
Okay, talk to a friend. Brainstorm with a friend. Tell your friend, okay, sit down. I need to talk to you about my story. I'm going to tell you what it's about. I am stuck in this moment. There is a moment in my book where Eloise's father has done something. I don't really want to elaborate. And I couldn't figure out what I was going to have him have done that was so bad. So one of my friends was here for lunch, and I said, right, listen, I need to tell you. And for about an hour, we just spat ideas. And suddenly I was like, I've got it. I know. And after lunch, I went, okay, now I can sit down and I can go. There is nothing wrong with asking someone to brainstorm with you. That's what friends are for. If you do any other type of job and you're stuck, you'll ask a colleague, hey, listen, help me out. So why not here? I have absolutely no issues with telling people what my book is about. People are like, oh, they'll steal your ideas. I'm like, yeah, well, they'll have to write it first. So let's see who gets there first. And that'll be me.
I love that. Ask for help. Yeah, because we're definitely not alone on earth. So I love that.
And when you write, as I said, sit down, open your Word document, or, I have a software program that is for authors. If you think this is something you want to do, invest in that. There are wonderful programs out there. Sit, head down, bum up, type. And just type and type and type and type and type and type and type. Don't go back. Don't look at what you've done. Get that story out and then go back and fix it. I said to someone the other day, I said, you need to think of your first draft as like, I can't draw at all. But if you're drawing a horse, right, you start with the outline. If you can't draw like me, you start with the outline. That's your first draft. Then you go back and you make it into a horse. So my first draft was the outline, and then I went and made it into a story. And you need to learn to start loving the editing, because the editing, I thought, oh no, I need to edit. But that's the part you need to start loving. That's the part where you need to go, okay, I am going sentence by sentence. Can I say this better? Can I make it shorter? Can I make it clearer? Can I make it punchier? And that's hard. And, when you've got 80,000 words, that's a big job.
Indeed. And I think it's also, you need to trust the process.
Yes.
Because it is exactly that. It's a process.
Yeah. And if you like Facebook groups, yeah.
No, sorry. So did you self-publish?
Yes. Yeah, I self-published. I thought about that long and hard. I wasn't quite sure what to do. My first book was what's that called again? A vanity publisher. Had I known then what that was, I would have never gone with a vanity publisher. So they publish, but you pay a lot of the costs. You will never, ever, ever get that back. So I've self-published and have to do my own marketing, which I enjoy the writing part of the book.
Well, hopefully we can help you a bit here on this show. Yeah. Then hopefully we've piqued enough interest for people to rush out and buy it. So at the moment it's on Amazon, but when will it be in the bookshops here?
So I actually contacted them the other day. They told me 3 to 4 weeks. So last week it was, when I contacted them, was 3 weeks. They said not yet. So I'm honestly hoping any day. I'll put it on my socials. I've got Facebook, I've got Insta, I've got TikTok, I've got them all. I'll put it on my socials. I'll go in, I'll take a photo, because that will be a very proud moment when it'll, when I can show my face next to my book that's on the shelf.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In my favorite bookstore as well.
Even better, right? Even better. So Yvonne, looking ahead, what is happening? What upcoming projects do you have? What's new with Yvonne that people can also be excited about besides the book?
A couple of weeks ago, say 2 months ago, I'm not exactly sure. So I always have stories going in my head. Always. There's always something. And sometimes I think, I need to write it down. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, that's not going to do. But I started in my head building a world. I came up with a name for a world. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going fantasy. I'm not a fantasy author. I am a massive Harry Potter fan. I love Harry Potter. I am not ashamed to say that I have. I don't have all the merch, but I do have Harry Potter Trivial Pursuit, which, so that is how crazy I am. So I love reading fantasy, but I never thought I could be a fantasy author. But I drew a map. I got this sketchbook and I drew a map, and I thought, my word, this is so much fun. And this story just came to me. So I started plotting the world. So when you write fantasy, you need to make sure that everything makes sense. There needs to be history. There needs to be, like my world needs a government, but the government, it needs to make sense. The villages need to have elders or rulers or leaders, whatever you want to call them. That all needs to make sense. The villages need a culture. The names need to match. I love books, absolutely love books, where suddenly I'm reading and I think to myself, oh my word, that is so clever. If I could ever have a reader who reads my stuff and go, that is so clever, I've made it. That's all I want. I just want someone to go, wow, this is so cool. This all matches, or with foreshadowing from the beginning that comes back in the end. And they're like, oh, I didn't see that coming. And so I was working on that, and I didn't actually really have mojo to write. It was just me and Word documents and drawing, and I had pens everywhere, and it was a mess everywhere. And I was creating animals and plants. And then suddenly on Saturday, I thought, so one of the characters in this book is called Charlotte, and her story was constantly in my head. And Saturday afternoon, suddenly I sat and like, I need to write now. So I opened my program Scrivener, started chapter 1, and as I said, word vomit happened. And I just kept going and going and going and going. And I think I wrote 4,000 words in one day. I don't write 4,000 words in one day. My average is maybe 1,000 in a good week. But I've been 4 days and I've on 12,000 words and I just can't stop.
That's amazing.
And I'm loving building this world. And I never thought that would be me. I never thought I could come up with this whole world, but that's my project.
Oof,
And
exciting times.
It sounds then that if you're building a world, that this is going to be a series. This isn't just going to be a one-off.
They were like, oh. It's very scary to say what I'm planning because now I need to make it come true. So there's 8 villages in the world of Elderwin, and every village is going to have its own book. That's all I'm telling you.
Okay.
Well, that's enough.
Like, after my first draft, I might think, oh, I need to change things. But it's going to be called The Crown of Elderwin. And every village has something to do with that. And there's going to be mythical animals, and there's going to be magic. There's going to be realism. There's all sorts of things are going to happen.
I think you've created enough curiosity for people to buy the first book and wait for the second one that's coming out. It's going to be a series, ladies and gentlemen. So, woohoo! Exciting times.
As I was told today by someone, can you hurry up, please? So I'm working on it.
Love how people are supporting you. It's absolutely fantastic.
Oh, it's
Yvonne,
amazing.
I can't believe we're going to almost an hour. Sara, do you have any more questions?
Oh, I've got loads of questions, but I think, because I think everyone probably feels they have a book in them. So we asked the question about if you were stuck. I mean, that's me. I'm stuck, so I'm halfway. But it's not fiction. It's a different type of book. So, but yeah.
But even with that, maybe it would be so nice if people listen to this. Maybe they can contact you and say, "Listen, I'm also stuck," and we get a group together. Come here and we'll do some brainstorming together, and we'll do some. It's almost like book coaching each other a little bit. Come for a couple of hours, talk about your book, and we'll help each other. That's something I would love to do. So if
we could call it Unblocked.
Oh, I love that. That is so good. Yeah. So
I think the whole idea of it's like a baby, isn't it? It's like creating a child.
Yeah.
This thing belongs to you, and then eventually you have to give it to the world and let the world, let it go off, and it's kind of grown up now. But it is that feeling of, so there is a little bit of reticence maybe to kind of share it sometimes, because you're thinking it's so personal. Even if it's not a personal story about you.
Yeah. When you get positive feedback, that's lovely. But the day when you get negative feedback, that it crushes you. I haven't been there yet. But maybe also people just don't want to say it to my face. But yeah, you've worked so hard on this, and you're so proud of what you've created. And I've got lots of people ask me, have you created the book cover? I have not. So this was done by a professional cover artist.
It's quite interesting though, that process, isn't it? Because obviously they've got to read the book.
So they don't actually. So
they don't.
No, because the book wasn't finished when she started designing the cover. So you need to give them a synopsis. You need to tell them. So the color sapphire is big in my book, and also emerald. So I told her that those 2 colors need to be the main thing. And I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but so this is the girl's outline of her head, and then there's a tree.
Let me see if I can make it. There you go. Is that you? Oh no, I want to put you in there. Don't want me in there. Oh, I don't know what's going on.
That's okay.
No.
So a big there's where she lives, so not the boarding school, but her own house. There's a willow by the lake, and a willow is said to keep secrets. So when you talk to a willow, it will keep her secrets forever. And she doesn't necessarily talk to the willow, but the willow is a very dominant presence in where she lives. So I said, I need blue and green. I need a willow. I want I want original letter type, and I want my name to be really clear. And then she went and designed something, and she sent it back to me, and I said, I hate it. Can you do something else, please? And I hated myself.
Wow.
Absolutely hated what she came up with the first time, and I almost cried. I'm like, oh no, please. I said, I want this. She had an example of something else, and I said, look, I want you to take that example. So she's never read it.
Oh,
she's never read it. Yeah,
that's really interesting.
Amazing.
Yeah, I just assumed that they would have to read it, kind of get a feel for the book and everything else.
Yeah.
So that's incredible then that they can just take your, obviously, if you gave them an example of something you wanted, then that's different.
Yeah.
So
And
you had to find your own,
yeah.
You had to find everyone yourself, your editors, your proofreaders, your
because I was self-publishing, I did it all myself. So I am on several Facebook groups which are completely geared towards authors. And, you can put out a question. Look, this is my novel. This is what it's about. I'm looking for editors. And then many of the editors just say, right, send us 1,000 words or 1,500 words. We'll do a free sample edit. And then you have to go eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And I hit the jackpot. And I think the best thing that happened is that my editor wrote the blurb. I can write 80,000 words, no problem. The blurb is the hardest thing to write.
Yeah. How do you make a synopsis that's going to be, really engaging and kind of get the essence of it?
Yeah. My wonderful editor, Danny, did that for me, and she sent it to me, and I was like, oh yeah, well, you've obviously studied for this, because it was brilliant.
That's an amazing skill, isn't it, to be able to do that?
Oh my goodness. And I see so many people on these Facebook sites, I'd really like to get into editing full time. And I'm just like, oh.
You have to really
love writing full time, no problem, but someone else needs to edit it. Yeah.
That is crazy. I love that you shared your journey and your incredible insights. And I think you've helped a lot of people if they are, or when they are stuck with what you've shared, is just ask for help and go through it and go from A to Z and then go back. Your story is truly inspiring. And I think that there's a lot of conversations that's going to take place. And I'm sure that we're going to have you back for the second project that you're busy with. Very exciting. Very
working
exciting.
on it. You need to be a little bit patient.
So will you visit the schools here, apart from obviously your own school where the students have read it? Have you contacted schools to say, I'm here, something that would...
I haven't yet. It is something I really want to do. But teaching full time, it's quite difficult to kind of find it. I don't really want to take a day off to go to another school. So it's difficult timing wise, but we'll see. Maybe next school year, if I can contact a couple of schools. I have been contacted by friends of mine who work at other schools who said, oh, would you like to come? So maybe in a couple of months it would be nice to do. We
need to get your audience. We need to get all those teens, meeting
absolutely.
you, reading the book, and so yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, I definitely want to do that. And there's a couple of bookstores that do book fairs at schools as well, and I'm in touch with a couple of those. So hopefully they'll be carrying my book as well, which would be that would be lovely. And in the meantime, it's available for me. So
exciting times ahead.
We will have all of the links below for how people can find your book, buy your book, and contact you if they need to, or maybe some of the other ways that they can see your work and connect in with you. But really, truly inspiring, and your passion absolutely shines through. So I'm sure that must radiate off the pages, as well.
I hope so.
Definitely.
Great.
Oh my goodness. So yes, this is wrapping up basically. I just want to say thank you to our listeners for tuning into Women Wise Podcast. Today's episode was really interesting, and as Sara mentioned, we all have a book in us, so it's building that creativity. So yes, please spread the word and stay in conversations. All our links will be shared as well, where you can follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, as well as Spotify.
We are everywhere. And of course, if you think you have an interesting story to share, if you'd like to come on and be a guest, again, the details are down below. You can send us an email and we will have a chat and hopefully get you on. But Yvonne, thank you so much for being with us today. Really loved the chat.
Thanks so much for having me.
No, it was fantastic. And remember, your story matters. Till next time, people.
Thanks very much.